Hello everybody. Today I'm here to talk about one thing, and that is what I'm playing here is an Augmented Triad. Now this isn't a very complicated concept to comprehend, but what I'm here to do today is share with you all what it is about this sound that I've come to enjoy so much, explain the function and structure, and some ways that it might be utilized in your own writing. And I'm going to be doing all this through its use in the Super Mario World ending theme. Now, what is an augmented triad? An augmented triad is a major chord with a raised fifth scale degree. So say we start on C, we'll have a C, E, G sharp. And now if you're familiar with seventh chords, you could turn this into a seventh chord here, make it denser, but doing so would provide more harmonic context for this chord, and that would actually take away some of the features that I'm about to describe that come along with just the augmented triad. So the goal here is to just stick with the triad. Now I'll explain where I found this and what drew me to it. In my most recent 8-bit choir project, of which you can catch a link to in the description below, the Super Mario World ending theme, Koji Kondo uses the augmented triad several times through this piece, and it is used in this figure here. He actually uses the augmented triad about 11 times in this manner in the piece. It is used both as an intro and as a transitional figure between sections of the melody. It is a stark yet playful quality to it, especially when combined with the jaunty rhythms and back and forth trading of the music. And it's this playfulness that drew it to me instantly. This playful quality is one of the hallmarks of Mario music in general. I've always had a fondness for the music of Mario, and it was enlightening to be able to find one of the components that helped develop its unique sound. But now what is it that makes the augmented triad here unique? The way it is functioning in this phrase is actually as a dominant 5 chord in a 2-5-1 progression in C major. However, this sounds more unique and even a bit more jarring than a traditional dominant chord here, while still being able to provide a strong sense of resolution, and that is because of the sharp 5 scale degree. The sharp 5, the D sharp, actually provides a half-step resolution to the E of the tonic C major chord. Half-step resolutions actually give stronger resolutions because notes that are half steps away from the notes of the tonic chord are the most dissonant in that key and thus have a stronger pullback to the tonic. So the sharp 5 here is actually able to provide a strong resolution back to the tonic. However, the augmented triad actually has something else that makes it stand out beyond the traditional dominant 5 chord sound. That X factor actually comes from something called tonal ambiguity. And to understand that tonal ambiguity, we must first look into the structure of the augmented triad. To construct an augmented triad, you stack notes on top of each other in intervals of major thirds. Interestingly enough, when stacking in major thirds like this, you will only ever contain 3 unique notes. So say we start on G. Up a major third, we'll get B. Up a major third, we'll get D sharp. And if we continue to go up a major third, we'll be at G again, and then the cycle will continue. The big issue here, however, is when the intervals are evenly spaced like this, is how do we define what the tonal center of this chord is? Before, we may have addressed the augmented triad in this piece as a G augmented triad, but we actually have 3 different competing tonalities between the 3 notes of the chord, with G as a dominant 5, with B, C major 7, and D sharp as the sharp major 2. While all of these have dominant function leading back to the tonic, The fact that they are all competing at the same time is what provides that tonal ambiguity that I mentioned earlier. This tonal ambiguity is what sets the augmented triad apart when used in this dominant function from the traditional dominant 5 chord. And Koji Kondo uses this sound expertly. Combined with the sudden rhythmic shift and the trading back and forth of the music between the bass and the melody instruments, it creates this almost musical limbo before bringing in a new musical idea, be it a continuation of the melody, a tempo change, or a key change. It's interesting that a chord can both provide so much uncertainty while also providing a strong sense of resolution. And it's this ability that makes these sections of the piece sound so dramatic. And with this ability to create an increase in drama, Koji Kondo uses this augmented triad figure at the end of the piece to further ramp up this big dramatic ending. At the end of the Super Mario World ending theme, Koji Kondo uses this big and bombastic modulation from C to D flat major to end the piece. And to get through this modulation, the 2-5-1 figure that utilizes the augmented triad is used here. This 2-measure 2-5 figure is played once in the original key of C major and then is immediately repeated and modulated up to the key of D flat major. First off, the modulation is brought through by the use of melodic repetition. By repeating the same phrase, it softens this dramatic modulation and even makes it seem as if it is the most logical next step for the music. And on top of this big and dramatic modulation, the augmented triad here is able to amplify the silly, jaunty, and bombastic nature of the music. And it's because of its ability to create and enhance the drama of the music underneath it. One of the common themes that I found when looking through comments of this piece was that it gives a tone of, I'm not sad it's over, I'm just glad that it happened. This silly, happy, and bombastic nature of the music, while also containing the bittersweetness of finality of the experience you just had playing the game, come to a full head here at the end of the piece. And the transitional figure here is made big and powerful through the stark and dramatic nature of the augmented triad, and it acts as an amazing send-off for the final phrase and really sets up the silly yet bittersweet ending. So the augmented triad can be used not only as a harmonic tool, but as a tone, energy, and atmosphere tool as well, to help create drama and amplify the musical emotions that you are trying to invoke. Now there is one last facet to the augmented triad that I wanted to talk about, but that isn't utilized in the Super Mario World ending theme, but it can be utilized in your own writing. While the augmented triad has some tonal ambiguity that can disguise its own tonal center, it can also be used to hide its tonic destination. Let's look at the same augmented triad we've been looking at thus far, this G augmented triad functioning as the dominant 5 chord in C major. And in this same 2-5-1 figure, since we can't clearly define this chord as a G augmented triad over, say, B or D sharp augmented triad, we can instead imagine the G augmented triad to be a B augmented triad instead. Now we can also treat the B augmented triad here as the dominant 5 chord. And because of this, instead of going back to C major, will be going to E major. Now I know I'm clearly defining these features of these chords, even though I'm saying that they are tonally ambiguous. But it's not for us as the writers to not know what's happening, more so than it is for the listeners to not be able to clearly hear our intentions. Here's an example of what I mean by using the Super Mario World ending theme to further explain. So here is the original. And here's what it could sound like. Notice that even with the minor 2 chord in front of it, starting to imply the motion back to C major, the chord is still able to create enough uncertainty for us to cleanly move into the new key of E major. It is a completely new key and one that the listener could not have anticipated given the information that we presented them. This is a great way to transition into a new key without the need for long transitional phrases or to have big jarring shifts into new keys. And well, that is all that I have for you on augmented triads here in this video. I hope you all enjoyed it and maybe learned something as well. If you're interested in learning anything more about music, saxophone, improvisation, or more, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you are interested in finding out other ways to help support, you can catch a link to my Patreon page in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.